everyone to Wine Wednesday with the beautiful Amy.
The stunning Tracy.
Thank you. We are back again. You may recall last month we did a video talking about sex or lack thereof. Today we will be piggybacking off of that video per your request and talking about reconnecting in a relationship. This can apply to a marriage, a same-sex union, however it applies to you. Many of you have also requested that I be sure to share the wine that we will be drinking. We are having Estancia Pinot Noir tonight. Fabulous wine, would highly recommend. Falls between the $15 and $20 price range. I'm going to start pouring. Amy, you start sharing with everyone about today's video. Oops, what am I doing? I always do you first.
You are fine. So yes, last time we did briefly mention some of the potential reasons why a marriage or union would become sexless. So I think we should perhaps just kind of recap that a little in case you have missed the first, and just kind of connect that into what the effects a sexless marriage will have on an individual. And then again, most importantly, how to rekindle, how to reconnect so that you can have that very important component of a relationship. We discussed how important that is and what not having sex within a union can mean to an individual.
Right. And yeah, the damaging effects it can have. And when it comes to connecting or disconnecting, this wouldn't apply to everyone, but often what happens is we as women, we are so engaged in raising the children that becomes our priority. When we first get married, our husband is our priority, but then the kids come along and things change. And we don't intend to, but we pull back and we put all the focus and everything to do with them. There's another thing that tends to happen early in marriages with small children is the constant critiquing of our spouse, how he does things, always correcting him. Because we by nature as women, we tend to, we think anyway, that we know how to do things with the children and that he is going to learn from us. So there's definitely some things that can happen early in a relationship, especially when the children come along. And what happens is sometimes those are the years when he is starting to pull back. And then eventually what happens is the kids get more independent and they don't require as much as us physically. And now we want a little bit more of that rekindling in the relationship, but there's been so many years of him learning how to do everything without you, learning how to fulfill his life without you because you place so much emphasis on the children. Before you know it, you're empty nesting, and where does that leave the relationship? And now you want that connection, but there's been so many years of the spiral down effect of the connection and the communication and the physical intimacy that he has already withdrawn, and you're left pretty lonely. You're left pretty lonely. We call this emotional abandonment. They call it being like an emotional widow, I've often heard as well.
I see that frequently. Now, most couples who come to me, and granted, they're coming to me because they recognize there's a problem in their relationship, and not everyone gets to that point, or they get to that point and they don't come to seek professional help. I see it happening so often, where the woman or the person who has been withdrawing and putting her or his attention elsewhere, that person has abandoned the partner. And I see that so incredibly often where, the person is still wanting that connection, but because they have been denied, often
Rejected,
sexually, for so many years, they are very hurt, they're feeling very lonely, they're feeling angry. Underlying most anger is fear or pain, and there's fear, there's pain, there's fear that I'm not desirable, there's fear that, the person that I've committed my life to doesn't want me, doesn't care about my needs, I'm not a priority to them. And so it goes both ways, absolutely, but I think it's obviously very detrimental to a relationship when you've lost the physical intimacy and the emotional intimacy, and then you don't know how to you don't even know how to communicate about your needs anymore.
Yeah, and that really stems, and I took some notes, but some of the things that I said is being starved for connection. That's a big one, and like Amy said, I'm not a priority. The couples are not actively connecting, and often one may want it now. Maybe they didn't at one point, but now they want it, and the other person has already disconnected themselves. Some of the things that we feel is, I'm just here. I'm an object in the room. He doesn't recognize me. He doesn't hear me. And again, this can go both ways, because this could be the male that feels this way, the husband that feels this way, but again, we're generally hitting women that are watching our videos. But I'm just sitting in the room, and resentment builds up, like Amy said. Now there's anger, and we take it out, we start nagging, we start bickering.
Comes out in all other forms.
It really does.
Exactly. Well, and as it relates to sex, so many people are just so afraid to talk about it. They don't know how to communicate about it. They don't know how to say, I'm feeling abandoned because you don't want to have sex with me. They don't even sometimes connect the dots themselves that that's how they're feeling. But that, I think, is the biggest problem, is we don't talk about sex. And can't say that without thinking about our theme song.
Well, yeah, exactly. and better for you to sing it than me.
We still have to do our cheers, by the way, and I already have a sip to not look into your eyes.
Cheers, especially when we're talking about sex.
Exactly.
Okay, one drink, and then I want to comment though on something you said about, let's say he is communicating to her that she doesn't want to have sex, and how that is not working for him. This goes back to how I think often men are afraid to say that I feel denied of the connection because you're not willing to be intimate with me. And women by nature, we love to do it. It's a stigma. All you think about is sex. All you want is sex. So it makes him fear to even bring up the topic.
The other key thing to remember is women too. I mentioned this last time. The hormone oxytocin is released when we have sex, which is the same hormone that is released when we breastfeed, because we're meant to feel connected. But oftentimes, men need that to feel connected to us. And so what he's saying when he's saying he wants sex is, I want to be connected to you.
Right.
I love you. I want to, connect with you in the most organic, complete way possible. And we just say, oh, you just want sex.
Yeah. But you have to understand your need for connection, the action that you actually need to feel connected could be different than the action he needs. Again, we may just need to be touched, not in the way maybe he wants. In an affectionate way, that could be connection for us. But again, this goes back to communication. Your partner is not going to know what your need is if you can't express what that need is.
So I think part of it is getting back in touch with yourself and really asking yourself why it is that I don't want sex, or whoever's watching this, if you are that partner, what is it? Dig a little deep into yourself. Is it really that you just are too tired? Or are you really feeling neglected? Are you feeling as though your needs aren't being considered? And I think that if you approached a conversation with your partner by saying, I would really like for us to be more connected. I would like to feel, this way about you, and I want you to feel connected to me, and whatever that looks like for you. And I think we could be better. So then you're not pointing fingers, and you're able to have that conversation and say, we haven't, we kind of both got lost here. So let's have the conversation to really find out. And if you do it in that way, he or she is not going to feel attacked. No accusations will be made. No blame will be placed. Yeah. And you're going to get so much farther in that conversation.
Yeah. If you're pointing fingers and you're blaming him, you always, you never, you did, you didn't. All of these
things make me feel.
Yeah. No one
Guess
can.
What?
No,
you decide how you.
Someone's behavior, negative behavior, can impact you, but what you choose to do with it is totally your choice. It's your decision. And that's part of emotional intelligence. And it's a very, very hard thing for people to master. I don't think it's ever mastered because we're triggered so often. But if you can get your emotional intelligence under control, be intelligent about your emotions, and understand that no one is making you feel a certain way if you're not allowing it. Okay? In your action, I mean, it's thoughts turn into feelings into action, but there's a lot that you can do. And I mean, that's a whole video in itself. And actually,
you can feel angry about what someone has done or not done, but you take that ownership.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Don't blame them. You're making me angry. Well, something they said did get under your skin for sure, but what you do with that really is all in your control.
And it may be justified.
Right.
The other thing to keep in mind is, you may have that initial knee-jerk emotive response, but it's the meaning that we give to that determines how we feel about something. Mm-hmm. So guess what? If you just communicate, there's a very good chance that you have completely misperceived and perhaps given that action the wrong meaning.
Well, and a lot of it's the approach, and we talked about this. So if your approach is attacking, by nature, what do? Our defenses go up. It's just the minute before they can even express what their concern is, as soon as you hear you, defense goes up. If you can take some ownership and communicate that, it speaks volumes. If you were to say, honey, I really want to talk to you about our relationship, and I feel that we don't connect the way we once did. I mean, somehow you got married and had children. Something happened. Okay, and we'll talk more into reestablishing that type of those feelings that you used to have for one another. We'll get into that, but right now it's understanding kind of how this disconnect, this emotional abandonment has taken place. And yes, sex can be a big portion of it, and making other things a priority, and that manifests. This didn't happen overnight. How many times have you heard someone say that got a divorce? If you were like, wow, I'm so sorry. This is news I didn't expect to hear. A lot of times they'll say, yeah, we just grew apart. Well, what do you think we just grew apart means? It's what we're talking about today. It really is growing apart.
Absolutely. I mean, we change. I believe who we are at our core doesn't change, but so many things about us change with the experiences that we have in life. My priorities have changed. My dreams have changed. All of these things, what I want, what I find my priorities to be. And if you are not staying emotionally connected with your partner, then even before the kids are gone, oftentimes you're looking at this person like, who the heck are you? Because you've stopped connecting in all of these ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And the result of all of this disconnect is one of the people generally check out. They push back further and further and distance themselves. And this really is because of the resentment that was built up in the negativity and nagging. Because generally, when we have resentment, it comes out in a very negative way, negative energy. And they end up checking out. And often you will find that they're checked into something else. They could be checked into alcohol. They could be checked into sports on television period. They will check into work more because it's a distraction. Think about it. If you were constantly being nagged and every conversation was nothing but bickering, what do you think that ride home from work would be like for that person? Well, what's it going to be today?
What did I do wrong this time?
I'm not even home yet, and I've already done something wrong. So they pull back and they distract themselves with other things because they don't want to deal with it. Who would want to deal with it? So it does go back to, like Amy said, taking some ownership for what role you played in this happening. But we so often want to say, you never pay any attention to me. We'll go out to dinner with another couple, and you'll be so excited and outgoing with them, and you don't give me the time of day. But where is that going to get you? Yes, you may feel that way, and this can definitely be brought up in conversation, but you're not going to get very far when that's how you're attacking him right from the get-go. You leave the restaurant, on the way home, you're on him again. That's not going to get you closer to your goals if you want to connect.
I always tell my couples the hardest thing about this is going to be looking in the mirror, because I firmly believe that both parties had some responsibility for the state of the relationship. And I'm never condoning infidelity, but even to the point up to where that happened, both partners had a huge role in where they are in that relationship. And if I have someone, I mean, that's probably the worst thing I've encountered as a therapist for couples, is when one person refuses to see any of their own responsibility.
Oh, yeah. You won't get far. You really don't.
No.
And that's another area, and we will try to address that when we offer some tips for reconnecting. What are some other things? It's an emotional rut. It builds and builds. It impacts.
Feel unattractive,
unlovable. What is wrong with me?
Right.
So self-esteem is jolted, and we talked in our last video about the role that men feel if they have a desire to connect physically, and we are constantly denying them. You're constantly rejecting him. It plays such a pivotal role on his self-esteem. Now, we operate different, so sex isn't always what we need to have our self-esteem, be checked or have that box checked with our partner. But for men, that can be huge. But for women, we need more of the connection in communication. We need the outer part, not necessarily what's happening in the bedroom. And if we don't get it, we start to feel unattracted, unlovable. What's wrong with me? Why do you not even notice me? So we lose connection, we lose communication, and we drift further and further apart. I mentioned that, you'll hear couples say, we just grew apart. We have resentment because our spouse doesn't give us any attention. I talk about if company's around, all of a sudden they're just energetic, they're excited.
Complimentary.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second.
Yeah.
How come you're telling her how great she looks and I don't ever get to hear that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anything else to say about that, or do you want to segue into where do you take it? If you are in this position and everything we're saying, you're speaking to me. I should just stand up. You're speaking to me. And I know we are speaking to many people. The big question, okay, what do I do about it?
Fix it?
Yeah. Just
as kind of a preliminary, warning, so to speak. If it's truly physical, if sex is truly painful for you, if there is a lot of emotional trauma from your past, seek professional help. This is more for those couples that are not experiencing trauma in their past, and it's not a physical, erectile dysfunction.
Right.
We talked about that last time too. That's something to seek some medical help for as well. But what if you're just that couple that, we've kind of let things drift apart, but we don't want to lose our marriage. Where do we start? Believe it or not, I fully believe that it's going to thrive if both partners are invested, but sometimes even one person can make a huge difference. But I think it really all begins with having that difficult discussion. How can we make us better? And here we have several
We're going to try. We're going to try, yeah.
So I'll just start. We've talked, we'll talk about emotionally connecting, but you know what? Starting with that physical connection, even if it's first starting with yourself. Have you lost touch with your own sexuality? I mentioned this last time. Yes, for those of you who are willing, masturbation can be very, very impactful. But sometimes it's just getting in touch with what feels good to you in a physical way. And sometimes we really truly lose sight of that. We disconnect from our bodies because maybe we don't like our bodies, or maybe we've become so caught up in our thoughts and our minds that we don't experience the mindfulness that can come, or put mindfulness into practice so that our whole body can experience the here and now. We don't connect with our bodies enough. So I think beginning with ourselves is sometimes crucial, but to start touching, like Tracy was showing, even if it's just a little here and there, a hug. A lot of people, their primary love language is physical touch, and even a non-sexual touch can mean the world to them. It can mean he or she cares.
Yeah.
It can mean that my partner wants to connect with me in some way. Right. And again, for somebody whose love language is physical touch, if their partner is not giving them enough physical touch, they do feel disconnected. And believe it or not, subconsciously they're feeling unloved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this even applies to children. So if you know anything about the love languages, and I will make sure that I link whatever I can down below. But with your children, I remember my husband and I taking the love language test when our children were too small to take it themselves. And it's easy to do if you are a parent, believe me. But if you have a child whose love language is physical touch, they do need that. They're doing their homework and you come up behind them and say, do you need some help with your math, honey? That tells them that is their love language. They feel loved. It's, we're very selfish and we think about what our needs are, but in a partnership, in a union, it is our responsibility to meet the needs of our partner. And if you are the person that is watching, and there are people watching that are saying, no, it is not my responsibility to make him happy. I didn't say happy. I didn't say happy. And you know how I feel about assumptions and people putting words in my mouth. It happens all the time. If you're a YouTuber, people are always putting words in your mouth. I didn't say you're making him happy, but there's a responsibility if you are in that union that you are meeting his needs. And again, it's different if we have some health condition or something where you need to seek therapy for that. That's different. But we're talking to the majority of you here. My big thing too is it goes back to what role did you play? Amy had shared when she works with couples, regardless of what they are seeking counseling for, both partners played a role in where they are today. So this goes back to taking the finger, putting it down, pointing at no one, and saying, let me do a little self-awareness and self-check and say, where along this marriage could I have potentially made some errors? And I helped manifest this.
It's inevitable. We are human. We are imperfect. I hate to tell you that, yes, there are definitely areas in which we all could have been better. And unfortunately, if you aren't willing to do that, you're probably not going to get very far.
Right, yeah. Because you're going to play the victim. And that's the biggest thing. I have in my notes, it begins with you. The work has to come from within. You have to build your own self-confidence. Amy hit on something. This is a big word. I use this all the time. Your core. You have to go to your core and you have to build your own self-confidence, because if you've been in a disconnected relationship, if you're suffering from this emotional withdrawal, emotional divorce, basically, your self-confidence has been jolted. You have to get in touch with your own emotions and you have to start working on them. You have to strengthen yourself. And I'm going back to like attracts like, and I talk about this all the time. Energy attracts like energy. So look at where you are today. Accept where you are today. Look at how you played a role in this and decide, what energy do I want to put out to my partner? Because if I'm going to put out catabolic, negative energy, what am I going to get in return? Set your pride and your ego to the side and reverse that. Because if I'm going to give positive energy, willing to work at this, willing to meet you halfway, let's connect, let's get through this, let's communicate, he's going to be a lot more eager.
With that being said, you know, a lot of, as you said, a lot of your viewers tend to be women, but, you know, we do have to recognize too that the emotional intimacy component is so huge. I heard of somebody that called themselves an intimateologist, and I love that. I want to be an expert in intimacy.
Yep, expert. Yeah, I love it.
And so, yes, you have to reconnect emotionally. Remember how I said, my priorities have changed, my goals.
Sure.
Have you stayed connected with your partner? Do you know what he or she wants out of life now? Has that changed? What is upsetting him or her now that didn't upset him or her before? Reconnect on that level. Make time for quality conversation a must. Make that a number one priority. I think that we need to make our partners the priority in our lives, because at the end of the day, that's where we're going to ideally be, who we'll be with at the end. Our kids will be off having their own families or doing their own thing, and eventually careers even end. But you want to stay connected to that person, then you have to make time. Time is so key. Quality time, time alone. If I tell people you have to connect daily, even if it's only for 15 to 20 minutes, have a few hours. I mean, some couples I've heard have an overnight every week. Can you imagine?
Wow, that would be nice.
But if you could just have a couple of hours of alone time on the weekend, maybe get that overnight in like once a quarter. It's so key to staying connected.
Yeah.
And you have to treat it, it's not really a luxury. It really needs to be a necessity.
Yeah. ROTI, return on time invested. One thing that I do with my clients in several scenarios is I have them change their why to what. Why is this happening to me? Well, let's reframe that. What is the reasoning behind this happening to me? What did I do to play a role in this? But we get into victim mentality and we think, me. This is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? Why do you always do this? Why? It's the same as pointing the finger. Reframe your whys to what? What can I do to make this situation better? What role did I play? What does my partner need? If we can take the focus away from ourselves, and I'm not someone that likes to push focusing on other people when it comes to other people creating our issues. I'm more into self-awareness and assessing ourselves. But when you look at what is my responsibility in meeting my partner's needs, you put that forward, you make it show. It's actions, because actions speak louder than words. You have to make the action, and it's uncomfortable because it's awkward because you're so disconnected. This is very foreign. This is very foreign.
And again, we are egotistical creatures by nature, and it's very difficult for us to admit to wrongdoing or admit to being at fault, but also even admitting it to ourselves sometimes. It's painful because sometimes what it does for a lot of us is it just strengthens the negative beliefs that we have about ourselves in whatever shape or form they may be. If you think I'm not good enough, oh, see, there's proof I'm not good enough. I screwed that up. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case. We have to recognize that we are imperfect and we will exhibit imperfect behaviors, but it doesn't change our worth or value. Another question I think is extremely powerful and again painful and awkward. How have I hurt you?
Oh yeah.
How have I?
You have to set a lot of pride and ego to the side to get that one out.
Yes, and watch your own defenses, because we're going to,
I already know where we're going. Once he expresses, what are you going to retaliate back? Well,
Yes.
It's because you.
Right. Well, yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's so key in this situation, and in, like I was saying, that reconnecting emotionally, to listen. And so many times I, my biggest role is just to say, let her finish, let him finish. And we get so caught up in, how am I going to respond? How am I going to defend against that accusation. That was probably more me that first time. So
Okay.
I was just listening and enjoying.
That must mean I'm talking more.
No.
That's the way I look at
You
it.
had some great points, some great notes. But as far as, again, putting the ego aside, having the conversation, and really being open-minded to, to what your partner, how your partner responds, making the time a priority, having time for that quality communication, going on dates, revisiting old memories, in terms
Yes.
of going back to places where you had such warm memories of one another, trying new things together. Recreational companionship is huge for a lot of people. So engage in some kind of activity together.
Absolutely.
That will bond as well. And believe it or not, oftentimes our feelings will follow our behaviors. We keep thinking, essentially what you're doing is, I'm going to wait till I feel like doing that. Sometimes, it's a cheesy saying, fake it till you make it, but sometimes if you just engage in the loving behaviors, you're going to feel that feeling of love. Yeah. Sometimes love is really an action word. And if you...
Definitely.
If you, one very simple exercise, and again, it sounds so simplistic. I have my couples engage in an exercise where they tell one another how they love and appreciate about, what they love and appreciate. Oh, and respect is a good one too. To do that regularly, and I'm telling you, not only does it feel good to hear those things, but if you are saying those things about your partner, if you are looking for the good, you're going to find the good, and you're going to start realizing, he or she's not perfect, but look at all these good qualities that I've been failing to notice.
And those qualities that you actually fell in love with. Because remember, our personalities are formed, okay? They're fixed, not like our emotions. Our emotions, we can still fix those. But your personality and your IQ are fixed, and they are fixed probably about the time you're entering high school, at least your personality, maybe even sooner. So you fell in love with some personality traits that he still has, because again, personality is fixed. So you don't get to rely on he's changed. I love that one. He's changed. Well, again,
like I said, we all
change.
Yeah.
Our priorities change, our goals change, and experiences do impact us, especially if you've went through something traumatic. It can definitely impact you, but you can play a big role in whatever that impact was. But emotions, completely different, highly plastic. We can work with our emotions, and that's the beautiful thing about emotional intelligence. But I think what's going to happen, though, is there's going to be some people out here watching that are saying, this sounds great, but I can't even communicate with him. Well, you know what I'm going to say about can't. Change that can't to won't. Take ownership, because if every time you say can't, it is your crutch. And I do it too, and I catch myself and I'm like, Tracy, no, I won't do this. Change your can't into won't, because now you've taken ownership. I won't do this. I won't talk to him, instead of I can't talk to him. Like he's unapproachable. No, I won't. Own it, make that choice, and make that choice to change it. What do you have to lose? Ask yourself what you have to lose. And I'm all about creating lists to make us more aware of things. Write down what you fell in love with about this person. And then ask yourself, what really have I fallen out of love about? And is it really about him, or is it something inside? But someone has to make the first step. I may not be talking to your husband. Amy and I are talking to whoever's watching this video, and there's a reason you're here, okay? This didn't happen by chance. Believe me, there's a reason you're watching. So what can you take and say, how do I turn this into action? I mean, my goal when I work with someone is you're functioning, okay? And you're functioning, right? You're still married. You're still getting up and going to work. You guys are still paying your bills. The mortgage got paid. You're functioning. But you can change that into optimal, but it is going to take setting aside egos, pride, taking ownership and responsibility for yourself, thinking about what energy am I putting out there because I'm only going to attract it. What you put out is what you're going to get back. It manifests. Recognize all of these things and then say, someone has to take the action. Someone has to take the action. So what do you have to lose? Right?
Just your pride.
Just your, yeah, and that's really something
pride.
to hang on
It's
to.
so painful to do, isn't it?
And you
So
know,
painful.
we've all been guilty. I mean, I coach, Amy's a counselor. You better believe everything we just shared, we have experienced. And we still will. Recognize that. You will still at times not handle yourself. You still at times will say, no, you did it. But those are all opportunities to grow and to learn and say, no, that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. Yeah, a lot of it is, who do you want to be?
Right, right. And again, you do have that choice. You know,
Yeah.
so many times we're saying, well, but he, but she.
Get rid of your butts.
Yeah, you just have to. You have to
Quit being a butt.
and if you don't, you know, if you come to that recognition, I just don't want to. Ask yourself, what is that about?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah. And what can I do about changing my thoughts on that motive?
Right.
Usually pride and ego. Again, we go back to that so many times.
Oftentimes, you know, we think in our mind, we've tried for so many years, and then we just give up, and then we're just done. You think you've tried.
Mm-hmm. Don't you?
Think you've tried. I've even been in similar situation to that, and you know, I wanted that emotional connectedness. I think a lot of it is I didn't know how to really go about it. We didn't have YouTube videos back then. And you know, at the time, you know, just there were some limited resources, but I could have made other differences.
Yeah.
And so it's taken. So I say this with experience in my own life, with the experience that I've seen with so many couples that I've worked with, and again, you can make the change if you're willing to make that sacrifice of ego.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are you going to say yes to, right? I always say it. What are you going to say yes to? You're going to have to say no to something, right? Because life is full of yes and no all day long. All day long. I just recently heard too that we experience over like 3,000 emotions in a given day. Incredible. I would have never thought that.
Humans, or one gender versus the other?
I think it's all humans. Over 3,000 emotions a day. So the more that you can really tap into, what am I feeling right now? Well, what am I thinking, and what is that doing to how I'm feeling, and what's my action going to be? But every day we walk around with yes and no. And if you want to connect, you're going to have to say yes to that, but you're going to have to say no to something else. And I can't answer what that is. I can't tell you what your no is, and Amy can't tell you what your no is, but there's something that you're going to have to say no to say yes to the bigger picture.
I say yes.
I say yes, let's do this. Thank
Just
you.
say yes.
Yeah, just say
Just
yes.
say yes.
Yes, say yes to Estancia Pinot Noir. It is a beautiful day. Now this video was filmed was 3 weeks ago from today when it is
September.
Yeah, when it was coming out. It's a beautiful day. We will be doing some outdoor dining, and anyway, yeah, we love it. And then the next video, November. Okay, yeah, and then we'll have. In December, we are going to do a girlfriend's gift guide. So we already have our two next filming assignments on the calendar. I don't know what November will bring, but I will say last year we did a video on kind of the family drama during the holidays that had came right before Thanksgiving. I will make sure I link that particular one. And then December will be the girlfriend's gift guide, which I'm really excited about.
I'm excited about our annual go out to Christmas dinner
Yes,
with the guys.
yes.
That's always
Yes.
like the highlight of
I
my
know,
Christmas season.
I know.
So
I'm
much
excited
fun.
too. So if there's anything in particular you would like us to do our next video on, this would be the one that comes out in November, please let us know. That comment section is there for you, and we are happy to do videos on what you would like to see. With that, thank you for joining us. Have a great evening. Enjoy your wine, and say yes to. Just say yes. You never know what you're gonna get out of it. We'll see ya. Bye.
Bye. Cheers.
Cheers. I know this is going in there, McKenna. Come on, shush up. Why? I hope it was filming.